Hi guys, welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I am coming to you once again from the south of Germany. Today is a Saturday, it's the 30th of May 2020. For us here in Germany, it's the beginning of a long weekend, so that's very, very exciting. So I am super happy that you're joining in today to talk about some knitting, some crochet, some yarn. If you're watching for the very first time, then a huge welcome to you, and if you're coming back, of course, thank you so much for being a regular viewer of this podcast. So today we have some finished objects. I have a couple of works in progress, some spinning and some acquisitions. I have noticed that my previous podcasts have become longer and longer again, and I like my podcasts to be around 30 minutes. So we will see. I will try to maybe keep everything a bit shorter because I think sometimes it's nicer to just have like the basic information, and then if you want to know anything more, anything further in regards to modifications that I make and all of that, you can always just check out my project notes, which are linked right below every video. So if you just click on the link there, it will take you to Ravelry, and there you can find all the things that I either forget to mention or maybe you don't understand because English is not my native language. And yeah, so that's the plan for today. We'll see how it goes. So I think we should just jump right in. So for finished objects, I have two finished objects this week, and this one is not very surprising if you've been watching. These are my neon pink socks that I always said I wanted to have finished for this week, and I actually finished them last weekend. I don't have the yarn tag with me to show you, but this yarn is by Bärenwolle, who is Vicky. She is sadly no longer dyeing. She hasn't been dyeing for a while, but this was her, I think, barefoot sock base, and the colorway was Disco Nights, I believe. It was something disco. I believe it's Disco Nights, and it's just a really fun neon pair of socks that never shows up as neon on camera as it is in real life. So these are really, really bright. These are going to be for me, and I absolutely love them. So I just did my basic sock recipe. So I did 64 stitches on a 1 millimeter needle, a 2.25 millimeter or US size 1 needle. And I did my usual garter stitch heel, which you can do with any short row heel. You just basically knit the purl stitches, and I do it with the Fish Lips Kiss heel. So they're done. I love them. You can see this stitch marker is where I was on the second sock last time I talked to you. So I finished them off, and they will go into my sock drawer, and I'm very excited about these. I've been noticing that recently I think I've been making my socks a bit too long in the foot. So I made these a little bit shorter, and I'm hoping that they will fit a little bit better. I mean, all of my socks fit me, it's not a big problem, but I've just been noticing more and more that with wear and tear of the socks, sometimes they are a little bit too long. So I'm trying to fix that, and it's just, I don't know, a matter of like half a centimeter or something. But they're done, and I'm really excited about them. So that is my finished object number 1. My next finished object, oh my gosh, I am so happy to have this done. This has been on the needles since the beginning of December 2019, which seems like a lifetime ago in many, many ways. And I finally just decided I need to pick this up again. And basically, this is what I've been working on all week. So I think I started picking it up on either Sunday or Monday, and I worked on nothing else until Thursday night when I finished this. This is the Cozy Corners shawl, which is a pattern by Stephen West. For some reason, you never really hear about this one, even though I think it's a really, really fun pattern. So this is it. I made it smaller than the original size, so I think it has 9 sections, and I basically did almost 8. So I've been working on this for a very long time, and part of why I kept on putting it down is because I kept forgetting where I was, and the pattern is actually quite memorizable in the way that it's very repetitive, and once you know where you are, you can just keep going. But if you keep putting it down, then it's a whole different story. But like I said, I just finally picked it up again and worked on it and worked on it and worked on it until on Thursday night I was like, okay, I just can't see this thing anymore, and I bound off. And I think the size is quite good. The original is like a huge blanket shawl. This is more like a regular shawl, and it is a bit of a weird shape. I'm not sure if you can tell, but it actually wears really well because it's quite deep. So I like shawls where you don't have like super long ends that just dangle around, and this works quite well for me. Both wearing it like this or just like throwing it around my shoulders, or it could even serve as a baby blanket if needed. So I am very, very happy with this. I left in this stitch marker. This is where I was when I picked it up. So I knit quite a bit of on this week, and yeah. So for yarns, I used one full skein of Wollmeise Pure in the Chic colorway, which is this sort of purplish, bluish gray. And I picked all of this up I picked it up in the store, I think, but in their sale bin where I think there was supposed to be knots in the skein, even though I don't remember ever finding any knots, so who knows. So this was one of their reduced colorways. And then I had a couple of their birdie mini skeins. I think a few of these were in the Bridget Jones birdie set, and a few of them I just picked up along the way. I had originally once planned for this to become a sweater. So I had 2 skeins of this main color, and they're 150 gram skeins, but it turned into a shawl instead. So I used up pretty much all of this one skein and left the second skein of the main color as it was, so I can still do something else with it. And as you can see, I still have varying amounts of the leftovers of the mini skeins, and yeah, I just basically strapped them in whenever it felt right. I didn't really have too much of a method to it. I just did random straps, and I wove in my ends along the way, which I think was very important because otherwise this would have been very frustrating. And yeah, I'm very, very happy how this turned out. And this also means that my whip count, not counting blankets, is down to 2. So I only have 2 active sort of projects that are not blanket projects, which Kai thinks is ridiculous because why do blankets not count as whips? I'm sure you guys as knitters and crocheters will understand that blankets are like a long-term project thing, so I think they totally don't count for your general whips, at least not in my house. Anyways, so this is done. I love it, and yeah, I wore it this morning. We went out for some coffee, and the weather has been kind of strange. It feels like it's been beautiful and sunny everywhere in Germany except for where we are. So I wrapped up in this, and I think it is quite useful, and I love it. So what have I been working on? Like I said, I have been focusing most of my time this week on the shawl that I just showed you. But ever since finishing that, I didn't have a real sort of super mindless project on the needles. So usually I always have like a pair of vanilla socks, something like that. But I currently don't. So as a result, I have been crocheting. And I've been putting some progress into this blanket. This is my Creepiest Blanket. So I got myself I think it's called a color set of Creepiest, and it consisted of 58 of these tiny yarn balls. This is a mix of either their river washed or their stone washed base, and I basically assorted all these little minis into a rainbow order, and I am doing a half double crochet or half treble crochet blanket depending on what terminology you use. So this is where we are with that. Last time I showed it to you, which I believe was last week, I was down here, and yeah, I've basically crocheted through the yellows and the greens, and I'm now ready to start with the more turquoise shades of my mini skeins. So this has been really, really fun. Like I said, it is very, very simple. I'm not really using a pattern. I kind of did what Tanis of Tanis 5 Arts did. She was the one who gave me this idea. And yeah, I'm using a 3mm hook. This has been quite fun to work on because these balls, they do go quite quickly. So whenever we are like watching a movie or an episode of House or something like that, I just grab like this blanket and one or two of these mini skeins, and I can just keep my hands busy and do something very, very mindless. The only thing that I will say is that I find crochet to be quite hard on my hands. So after crocheting quite a lot on this yesterday and this morning, I can definitely feel my hand kind of cramping and not being super comfortable. And my worst nightmare, especially right now, especially knowing that very soon I'll have more knitting time, is to have any sort of like carpal tunnel issues or anything like that. So I think I'm going to give myself a crochet break for today and possibly even tomorrow, just to kind of let my hands recuperate, because I do find knitting much easier on my hands. But yeah, besides that, I am really loving this thing. I am almost halfway done now, and so I think I'm making good progress with this. This is going quite quickly, considering it is a 600-gram blanket. And yeah, so that is one thing that I've been working on. The other two whips that I have, I'm going to show you pretty quickly because I haven't made a whole ton of progress. Also, I'm getting quite uncomfortable sitting here. Very quickly, these are my Curiosity and Opportunity socks. Once again, without a sock blocker, but they're a cabled sock pattern by Hohi Locatelli. The yarn that I'm using for these is Regia Premium Silk, so it's their silk sock yarn in colorway number 32, which is called Salmon, if you go onto their webpage. And last time I had just done the ribbing for the second sock, and now I am, I would say, about halfway down the leg. So again, I only picked this up once, I think last weekend. This is kind of the next thing that I want to finish. I am planning to devote some time to this because these socks really need to be finished very soon. I am enjoying them, but I kind of need them to be done. And again, if I just put some time in, they should be done rather quickly. But of course, with a massive chart, these are not the socks that I can work on while like hanging out with Kai and having conversations and watching stuff. I do need to focus on this a little bit more, so this is not as mindless. But I am quite enjoying it still. Not sure if I will keep these for myself or give them to my grandma as a gift, but I have a feeling they're a little bit too big for her, so I might let her try them on, and if they don't fit, I'll probably keep them for myself, which is not a bad thing either, and I will make her some new socks very soon. I actually really should. So that is one thing that I've been working on. And then the other thing that I've worked on, I only really picked this up again last night. This is the sweater that I had just cast on last week's episode. This is the Cotton Skye sweater, which is a new pattern by Vera Valimaki. I had bought it pretty much when it came out. I think it came out in the beginning of May, so it's very, very new. I talked about the modifications that I made last week, and they're again also in my project pages if you're interested. This used to be quite mindless, and then yesterday when I picked it up, I kept on messing it up, mostly because I am doing helical knitting, which means I am alternating my skeins using the helical knitting method. And that works quite well, but I had some issues with working that over the raglan increases, which in this case are very visible. So if you mess it up, oh, I'm dropping stitches. If you mess it up, at least I could really see it. So I've been like dropping down and fixing things, and I think it's all good now, but this was just not what I expected last night when I picked this up. So I was getting quite a bit frustrated with this, and I kept on thinking, did I really pick the right pattern for this yarn? And am I really going to wear this color or this colorway as much as I thought I would? And I even thought about ripping this thing out. And I think I'm overthinking it. I am definitely going to work on this a little bit longer. I would like to split for the sleeves and see how it fits and then decide what to do with it. I think there's nothing wrong with my pattern choice or size choice or anything. I think I'm just overthinking this and realizing that by the time I finish the sweater, I probably won't be able to wear it very much, not because it is summer, but because I will be too pregnant. And so I'm kind of struggling with what size do I want the body to be? Do I want to make this really oversized so I can wear it throughout pregnancy? But what is my body going to be like after pregnancy, and what am I going to want to wear then? And I'm just overthinking it, basically. But yeah, the rows are quite long. I am, again, very excited to split for the sleeves. I think I have about 8 or 10 rows to go. Something like that, possibly more, I don't want to know. It is a DK weight sweater, but even now, even with that, it is still a lot of stitches right now, and the textured stitch isn't one that goes very fast. But I do really like the yarn. This is Das Mondschaf in her Draco DK vase, and the colorway is GLaDOS, which I believe she is discontinuing. So I'm really happy I did get a couple of skeins before she decided to do that. But yeah, I've just kind of been overthinking this mostly. But that is my other work in progress that I, of course, do want to spend some time on this weekend and this coming week. Alright, so before I talk about acquisitions, I will very quickly talk about some spinning. And if you're not into spinning, this won't be a very long episode or segment on spinning, and of course you could always just skip ahead a couple of minutes. But I have finished my spinning project, which I am really excited about. Last week I showed you the bobbin that I was working on, and this was a fiber by Hilltop Cloud, who is in the UK, back from her, I think, Travelers or Time Travelers Club, which I joined last autumn. And this was a blend of llama, merino, South American wool, and viscose nibs. So I think this was my first time spinning with llama yarn, llama fiber, I should say. And I was aiming for about a DK weight, and that's exactly what I got. So I had 200 grams of fiber. I spun it onto 2 bobbins and then did a 2-ply. And I love how this came out, to be honest. I haven't done that many Tweedy spins, and there's hair in this one. And this has to be my favorite Tweedy spin I've done so far. I tend to like to be very, very much in control when I spin. And with these like Tweedy nets that just pop up in the fiber, it is quite unusual for me to just kind of let them go into the yarn and not draft them out and just let the yarn be Tweedy. But I really love how this turned out. It turned into a very soft and squishy 2-ply. I am thinking this will be something for baby's winter wardrobe. So I'm kind of imagining like I don't want to make like a tiny newborn thing, but maybe a 6-month-old winter thing, like a beautiful oversized sweater or cardigan or something, and maybe some matching things to go with it, because I do have quite a bit of yardage. I have about 400 meters or 200 grams of this yarn, and I think I'm going to cake this up actually very soon. I like to cake up my handspun because that just makes me knit with it immediately, and I need to knit with my handspun more. So very, very happy with this. As per usual, I spun it on my Ashford e-spinner, which is the Ashford e-spinner 3, and yeah, it worked out quite well. So that is my finished spinning, and I haven't really started any new spins since, because again, I just have this need to finish knitting projects right now. I just need to clean my plate a little bit, so that's what I've been doing. So for acquisitions, I have 2 things. I have one thing that I bought and one thing that I got as a unexpected gift from a lovely viewer. So maybe we should start with that. By the way, I'm drinking iced tea today. I mean, who am I? What has happened to me? I've had the biggest coffee this morning though, so that is why I decided to switch to some non-caffeine tea, and it is iced because why not? So Like I said, a lovely viewer got in touch with me, and she didn't say, I didn't ask her whether I could name her, so I'm going to keep you anonymous for now, but thank you so much. You know who you are. And she basically just said she would like to send me a package. I think she's a higher rep in the UK, but there was no, we didn't agree on anything. She didn't, I think it was just a genuine want to send me a gift, which was really, really generous. So again, I'm not being forced to say anything. And I had no idea what to expect. And then this pretty big package showed up, which was just lovely. And first up, she sent me some baby yarn. This is Peyton's Soft Baby Fab 4-ply, which I've never seen before. And it seems to be about a fingering weight, and yeah, I just didn't expect that. So thank you so much for this very sweet gift. I haven't quite decided what to make with it yet, but I will find a good use for this for sure. And then she sent me some higher things. So first up, she sent me these adorable needle stoppers or point protectors. And I haven't unwrapped any of these, but they're these adorable pandas that they're just so cute. So that is great because I tend to lose stitches all the time. I don't really use like the DPN cozies that I do have some. And I have some needle protectors from, I think, Prim, like the really cheap ones that you can get in any sort of local yarn store. And they don't work very well, so I'm very curious to try these, and they're adorable. She also sent me one of these tiny snips, and I love these. I used to have one of those. Don't remember where I got it from. I think I had the octopus snips. And I'm going to open this up. And you can basically attach that to like a project bag or anything. And I used my old ones all the time, so now I have new ones, and these ones are kitty cat shaped. And yeah, I love these, so I'm so happy to have another pair of these. Yeah, so that was not all that she sent me. She also, and this was a huge surprise, she sent me a needle case. So you might remember that I did a needle review video a couple of weeks back, and if I'm really organized, I will link it, who knows. And I mentioned that I didn't have any good needle storage. I had since actually bought a needle case to try, and while it was okay, it was kind of too big for me, and so when I got this, I thought, okay, I'll try this one. This is from Higher, I believe. And originally, because it looks quite small, I thought I would just put my sock needles in there because I use my sock needles all the time. So I thought that would be a good idea. But it turns out this tiny case, it basically fits all of my needles. So I started out with my sock needles, and then I just kept adding to it. And this basically has all of my needles except for my interchangeable needle sets. And I have recently sorted through my needles and put some of the ones that I really don't use away. So I have some needles that I inherited from my grandma that she probably knitted with for the last 50 years or so. So those, I can't get rid of them, but I don't really use them either. So I've put those away. I've also put some away or thrown some out that were seriously damaged because I sometimes tend to keep damaged things even though they don't really work anymore. So I had some DPNs where the plating had come off and all of that. But yeah, can you believe it? Like, this is such a small case and everything's in there. So I put all of my sock needles that I use all the time in here. These are basically all of my 2.25s, my higher, my Shawl, which are my favorite. And then in the back, I put like an assortment of other sock needles that I have, but don't really use all the time. Then I put in my DPNs. So I have 4 sets of DPNs. I have all my 3.5 millimeter needles in one spot. And then I have, because I use those the most, and then I have small needles here and bigger sizes. I think up to like a 6 millimeter needle, a needle gauge, some crochet hooks, and all my like tiny needles that I use for sleeves and hats in here. And this is amazing. Like, I had no idea. And again, I'm not being paid to say this, but I just didn't think that there would be like a small case that could fit all these things. So I will say that from my interchangeable set from Shawl, that comes with like a small case, and I really enjoy that. But this kind of reminds me of that. Like, it's the same idea. It just about closes because I do have it very, very full, but it works and I love it. And it's actually quite handy. It's easy to open. My other one, I had to like do all these ties, which was really beautiful, but not very handy if you're looking for needles and you want to get to them quickly. So yeah, very, very excited about this, and thank you so much to the person who sent this to me. And like I said, we also purchased some yarn. So you know me and my quest to support indie dyers, and as we are at some point leaving Germany, who knows when, we don't know. I am, of course, wanting to buy all the German sock yarn. And it's really funny because my husband Kai, a couple of weeks ago, had this very, very specific, strange request that he wanted some black sock yarn with neon speckles. Not sure how he thought of that, but he kind of decided that that was what he needed. And so I kind of kept that in the back of my head, but it's not like everyone does black yarn with neon speckles. And then the other day, I saw the perfect thing. So this just popped up in my Instagram, and this is yarn from Strickoholic. So she's a German indie dyer, and I actually purchased yarn from her, my first ever sock blank, I think 4.5 years ago. So it was just before we moved to Munich. I remember we were looking at different cities depending on where we might move to. And I worked on her yarn, and I haven't worked with her yarn since, so it's been a long time. So I got some from her Etsy store, and like I said, this is exactly what Kai wanted. It is black and it has these neon speckles in it. Let's open it up. And he was very, very specific that he didn't want anything that had like pink or purple speckles, because Kai is very specific like that. And she had a version with and one without pink and purple. So I love this. I think I'm going to cake this up today because Kai has been bugging me to knit him socks quite intensely. And I am actually really, really curious to see how this will work up. I think it'll be really fun to knit with. So this will be my next vanilla sock project. I should say this is her Merino Super Soft Socks base. So it's a merino and nylon blend. And it doesn't seem to have a colorway name, but who cares? So I will cake this up, and then because yarn really doesn't like to travel alone, I had to get a skein for myself. So I got this one. This is the same base. This is possibly colorway number 132. Who knows? It says 132 on here, but I think most of her colorways are just sort of one-of-a-kind colors. But it's really fun and springy, and I think it should make some interesting socks. I'm kind of craving like pooling colorful socks at the moment, and so I think once I am done with my cleaning all my needles craziness, I will cast these on pretty soon as well. I should say though, I'm talking about all these cast-ons. The next cast-on, or possibly two cast-ons that I'm doing at the same time, is these socks. And also, you may remember that I was working on these colorful socks, color work socks, I should say. So I had been working on the Power Flower Club May socks for most of May, and the June edition of those, the June pattern is actually coming out tomorrow. It's coming out a day early because it's a Sunday and a long weekend. And that's a pair of color work socks that I am 99% sure I will have to cast on right away as well. So who knows when I'll actually get around to doing all these things, but at least I have big plans, don't I? So that's it for the yarny content of this week, and I think that's pretty much it for the podcast as well. It's been a tough week. I mean, it's been a tough week for the world. It's been a tough week for the BIPOC community. And what happened in regards to the murder of George Floyd is just so horrific, so terrible. And it definitely stopped me in my tracks, and I hope it did lots of people, because it just shows it's just one of so many incidents of racism, and just because this time it was caught on camera doesn't mean it doesn't exist otherwise or elsewhere. It exists all the time, and it was really shocking to me and a lot of people that I know. So it's been a hard week with that and reflecting on that and reflecting on, yeah, what it means to be as privileged as we are, and like kind of checking our reality that we live in. So that's one thing, one terrible thing that happened this week. It's also just been generally a tough week on a lot of levels for me. We are dealing with our desire to move to England and it not working out for different reasons. But I think with all of the hiccups that are happening, we are starting to make some plans and make some decisions, and so that is happening in the background. And also, on the positive side, my work is coming to an end. So I have, I think, 5 more days of work, and then I will be able to start my maternity leave, / I will be actually taking my leftover holiday days before officially starting maternity leave. So I am very much looking forward to that. I am very much in need of one complicated chapter of my life closing, and it will obviously give me more time to make things, to create things, to rest, and also spend some time with family, which should be really, really good. So all of that is happening, and most of it is kind of not that great, but I do think it's worth talking about. And I also think that on a personal level, it often seems with Instagram and social media that everyone else's life is just amazing and filled with yarn and color and knitting and happiness, and that is definitely the case. I am very lucky and happy and all of that, but I think it's also important to be real and to realize that all of us don't and can't share everything that is happening all the time, and to have that part of our lives as well. So yeah, that's kind of what's been happening. Like I said, it's a long weekend. I'm looking outside and the weather is somewhat questionable once again. But now that I've finished this podcast and we've already been out this morning, I am planning to just sit back and knit and just spend some time with my stash. Talking about stash, I did a big de-stash last weekend. Thank you so much to everyone who just jumped on that right away. So that is done, and I'm undecided whether I want to do a second round, because what I definitely forgot to kind of take into account before doing the de-stash is how difficult it would be both during coronavirus times and at the same time while being pregnant. So I tend to forget that I'm pregnant and tend to forget that things take longer and are more complicated, and I am more limited than I think I am. So that de-stash round was quite exhausting. So I haven't decided if I'm going to do another round or if I'm just going to leave the yarn that I still have in my stash for now, because I do like it and I don't need to desperately get rid of anything. I think I got rid of like 14 skeins of sock yarn as well as some sweater yarn, so I'm already very, very happy about that. It always feels good to me to get rid of stuff as well and give stuff a new home. So yeah, that's what happened, and now I think I want to resort my stash so it all just kind of has its own order again. And yeah, so that's going to be happening this weekend. Besides that, like I said, lots of knitting, lots of crafting, and I hope the same goes for you. So wherever you are, I hope that you are keeping safe, staying healthy, and hopefully you have some time to enjoy some crafting, play with some yarn. And I thank you so much for watching this week and every week. I will see you very soon, and until then, just have a great weekend, have a great week. Happy knitting. Bye!